Eryk, ya boy, Anders versus the Iron Turtle, Jun Park. And Eryk Anders, even though I'm like such a big fan of both of these fighters, he opened it up saying, "Oh, we're gonna be making some turtle soup" when he's talking about Jun Park. And I was like, "You better not sleep on my boy, brother, because that is not the right mentality to have against a Jun Park. This is a scary, scary man." And to even solidify that even more, he opened up as a minus 220 favorite, brother, and the odds are still the same. Currently, plus 180 for Anders, minus 220 for Jun Park. Anders says that it is crazy that he is the underdog. He should be the favorite in this fight. And to a degree, I can see where he's coming from, but Jun Park, given that he fought Gregory Rodriguez and had Rodriguez on skates in that fight, ended up losing, getting finished, right? He still had a very valiant effort, right? He has a majority decision win against Stefan Nchukwi, where he bloodied that man up. It was pretty rough setting for him at one point. John Phillips and Marc-Andre Barriot. He has victories against all of those guys. Very impressive, man. Great striking, great takedowns. You know what I mean? His wrestling is legit. Jun Park is nobody to be messed with. But your boy Eryk Anders, man, what makes him scary in your eyes? Is it his ability to walk forward and land critical damage on his opponents and take a lot of damage himself? Only been finished twice in his career. Is it that this dude was like a former fucking middle linebacker or some shit at Alabama, you know what I mean? And now he's an MMA fighter? Is it that he's just that powerful of a man? He fights at light heavyweight. He's a huge middleweight. What is it that makes him so scary?
My favorite aspect about him is he's a marauder,
Yeah.
down to walk forward, bite down that mouthpiece and engage in a war because he's a big dude, bro. Coming down having to make weight. And that's going to be the big question I have for this one. How's the weight cut going to be?
Mm-hmm.
Because he's fought at 185 before. So, he's getting it done. But when you go up and you're kind of getting older and things are a lot harder, man, you don't get small unless you're Jose Aldo. You don't get smaller as you get older. It's just
Yeah.
something that doesn't happen, especially being this big. These big boys are coming in. I think that's Eryk Anders. One, he's a great fighter as well, but his style and his tenacity and the way he's drawn people into the fight and Jung Park is willing to engage in that kind of crazy style. I think that's what makes him a very dangerous fighter in this one here going. Do you see a crazy explosive match coming, or are we going to see something a little more technical, Derek? Which one are you thinking? And what's your favorite aspect of Eryk Anders as well?
Well, so I think that we're going to see a little bit of a repeat of the Gregory Rodriguez versus Jun Park, where it was just back and forth trading shots. But the difference is Anders is big power and Jun Park is steady volume, right? He's not the big power guy. He's the steady volume, and that's how he beats his opponents up, just nonstop, just volume, 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 volume. But are you going to be able to handle the power of an Eryk Anders? I'm not sure. And one of my favorite aspects of an Eryk Anders is the durability, brother. You remember his fight against Thiago Santos, right? Where he was just getting destroyed, picked apart. It was not a good look, right? And he's able to just withstand and keep it going. It does not matter. Like for him, he says, I follow him on Instagram and he answers questions from time to time. He said that's one of his favorite fights that he's ever had, right? You look at his fight against Khalil Roundtree, another one where it's just getting chopped down. It's just like, Jesus, man. Like, but he just wills through it. There is no quit in the man, unless you're getting your arm snapped off like he did against Andre Muniz in his last fight, which is like, let's be honest, it's a loss, but is it a bad loss when you're fighting a dude who has been killing everybody? He's the real contender in the middleweight division right now. Somebody who I don't see getting talked about nearly enough, but that's neither here nor there. Either way. So obviously, this is going to be a matchup of power versus volume. But it gets interesting when Jun Park decides he wants to take it to the ground. If he was able to take Stefan Nchukwi to the ground, who is really a light heavyweight fighting at middleweight, and Nchukwi might have moved up to light heavyweight, I'm not sure currently as it stands, it's going to be interesting because Eryk Anders had that issue with Andre Muniz. When he fought a Gerald Mearschart, he was able to get a decision victory on Gerald Mearschart without necessarily getting taken down all crazy and put in those bad spots. But the clinch of Eryk Anders, I think, can give Jun Park a little bit of a problem, brother. I think that that's a spot where Eryk Anders can do a little bit of overpowering, drop those big knees, do a little bit of dirty boxing. But if Eryk Anders decides to clinch up with Jun Park, do you think the threat of the takedown is going to be too high for him?
That's what I was thinking, man. That threat's going to be too high because he was exposed so bad by Andre Muniz in the last one. That Jung Park's going to be thinking the same thing. And is Park that submission specialist that's going to be able to get things done? It's going to be told. I mean, I don't really see him as that. I see him as more of the consistent. Like you said, very puts the pace on you, stays consistent with it, not the big power shot kind of guy. But to that point, the Iron Turtle has 3 submissions, so it can be again. It can happen that way. He just has more KOs and decisions. but the submission, it can happen. And against somebody who is that walking forward, is that pressure guy, is that scary marauder like we're talking about, it's easier to take him down when he's walking forward and he shows you his hips, and then you just shoot right to them. And like I said, he was exposed in his last fight, so it has to be weighing on him a little bit, and it has to be somewhat of a game plan for Jung Young Park. What do you think? Is Aaron Charlo going to be able to take him down?
Well, my question is, because I'm not going to answer your question with the question, but the question I have for myself when you ask that is that has his preparation at Fight Ready kind of gotten him prepared for that? You're training with Henry Cejudo, man, Triple C right there. So it's like, all right, you got a dude who knows all about the wrestling, all about the takedowns. Maybe he has a plan for Jung Young Park, because we all know if you're a Jung Young Park fan, you know what the game plan is. It's to strike him up, get him to the ground, ground and pound him. I think Jung Young Park has the record for most like significant strikes landed in a fight because of how much ground and pound he had against John Phillips. That was the fight that he solidified that one, right? So let's look at the prop too on that one. Jung Young Park via decision is plus 100, brother. That is clearly the best path to victory. But if MMA was a cut and dry sport where it was just like, oh well, he has this game plan and he's going to execute it and that's going to be that, I'd pick that all day. But you're fighting Eryk Anders, and do you think he's just going to let you do that? Like when John Jones and DC, they were arguing back and forth on the interviews, and John Jones was like, "I'll kill you," and DC was all like, "You think I'm just going to let you kill me? Like, you really? Like, you think I'm just going to let you?" Like, and I was like, bro, that's how it is. Like, Eryk Anders ain't just going to let you do that shit. Like, come on, bro. So Jung Young Park is going to have to get past the power, but it's not going to be an issue because he's fought nothing but power dudes in his last 4 fights. However, I think this is Eryk Anders' moment right here, brother. I think that he's an underdog and he's being overlooked, but I think he's really grown. With every fight, he's grown more and more and more. And that last loss, yeah, that was a major setback. He did get exposed, but Andre Muniz broke Jacare's arm, brother. I mean, do you know who Jacare is? This is not just some dude off the couch. This is one of the best jiu-jitsu guys in MMA history. So with all that aside, brother, I talked props. Let's get into it. Clearly, the Iron Turtle is the heavy favorite, minus 220. Eryk Anders, plus money, 180 comeback. But if we're talking about a decision for Young Park, is that plus 100 too lucrative to not take, even though you're rocking with Anders? Like, because for Anders, for a decision is plus 350, and for a TKO is plus 450. So I feel like an Anders money line might be a little bit safer than any of these props. What do you think?
I think so, man. Saying that, because what in my mind, I had Anders KO round 2. I think it's going to go a lot like the Gregory Rodriguez fight. But as far as safety for the bet, that kind of money line sounds a little bit better, man. I mean, the odds makers have it as Young Park winning the decision. But if you are going to take Anders, that plus 180 for the money line, probably the safer of the bets.
Yeah, and I agree with that as well. Just because Jung Young Park, the one thing that I did notice that does lend favor to the TKO prop for Anders is that when he's hitting that volume approach on you, he's just arms forward, do. He's not bringing nothing back. He's not guarding. And that's how he got finished. Is because he was just doing too much of that strikes. Gets caught. Couple right hands over the top by Rodriguez. When Rodriguez was like dead tired too, right? Gets caught. Next thing you know, the fight's finished, right? So for Eryk Anders, man, you let him hit that big left hand. You know that's Eryk Anders' game plan. It's land the big left hand. There's nothing else that needs to be said right there. You know what I'm saying? So I think it is fair though, AJ, and I'll put this down because we're both rocking with your boy Eryk Anders in this one. Even though I do think that Jung Young Park it's not going to be an easy fight. I'll just say that. I think the best case scenario is no prop on this one and resort to the money line. But if you were going to take any prop on this one, I don't care who you're rooting for, I would take the plus 100 decision win for Jung Young Park just because I think that's the safest odds of happening. Either way, I'm going to defer to the money line on this one. And you feel the same way, AJ?
Yeah, I feel the exact same way,
All right,
man. The
brother.
money line seems to be the most lucrative, at least for the pick that I'm looking for, that Eryk Anders. But if you are going to go for the prop, that decision by Jung Young Park, it's good money.
Absolutely, brother. So listen, man, over and under on this one, 2.5 rounds. Even though we're rocking with the money line, let's just talk about a method that we see happening. How do you see it happening? Over, under, TKO decision? How do you see it going down?
I mean, obviously going for the money line. I think, man, I still see that KO round 2. I think it could be a short one.
Okay.
Could possibly be a short one, man. What about you?
So are you taking the under though? 2.5 rounds?
Under
Yeah.
the under, because you said 1.5,
2.5.
2.5. Yeah, taking the under
Okay.
early round 2.
Listen, brother, it's gonna be tough, man. I want to say Anders by a TKO. I really do, just because of the deficiency. I think the power is just going to be too much for Jung Young Park personally. But then you look at when's the last KO win Anders has had, and it's been a little minute, man. It's been a lot of decisions. So I think that I'm going to rock with the over on this one. Go points for Eryk Anders in a hard-fought victory, but I think he's going to have the more explosive, more damaging shots throughout the duration of the fight. Jung Young Park could have more significant strikes landed, but we'll see. It depends on who gets hurt, all that good stuff. So